ready, Dennis? You guys need to come over and see my tree. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to get rolling. We've got a full agenda and lots of things to cover. Lots of guests to hear from. So as we launch into a moment of silence, that verbiage doesn't sound very good. As we proceed to our moment of silence, we want to continue to remember the family of Kendra Neal. Kendra was the latest fatality out on US Route 33. Who was killed about 2 weeks ago out at the Kiesling Mill intersection. Her brother is Kurt Norman, who's one of our waste collection workers. So he lost his baby sister. We also lost last week Dr. Jerry Black, who was a friend to many in our community. Many of us doctored with Dr. Black, the ophthalmologist. And then a day or so after Jerry's death, Professor Allison Hall, a longtime colleague at the college, and college hurts, we all hurt. She succumbed to a sudden heart attack. She was a runner and the leanest, fastest gal you'd ever want to know, and just a complete shock. We also want to keep in our best thoughts, wishes, and prayers the folks situated just to our east in Randolph and Preston and Putnam and parts of Pocahontas County. They were hit with a devastating flood this past weekend, and just all kinds of property damage. Fortunately, as I'm hearing information, there were no fatalities, but lots and lots of property damage. We are working with Chad Corley at Lowe's to help gather supplies. So if you want to contribute to that cause, let us know here at City Hall, and we'll make sure we get it over to our friends to the east.
I was over there yesterday afternoon. It is 2016 revisited. It's bad.
So let's keep all those folks in our best thoughts. Thank you very much. Mr. Danny Stiles, would you be so kind as to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all for being here. I do have a piece of good information to start our meeting. Late last evening, Mr. Ryland Thomas Hall came into our world. So C.J. Rylands is not here. He's on his way back. He just landed in Pittsburgh about an hour ago. But I don't think he'll be here for the meeting unless we can drag it out. Try to make it last maybe 3 hours. And you can catch the tail end of it, right? So we welcome Ryland Thomas Hall to our world. The first guest I'm going to call upon is Danny Stiles, because he's got rehearsal for Mary Poppins. I just stole your thunder, didn't I?
You did, just a little bit.
Do you want to tell the group about Buckhannon Community Theater's upcoming productions?
Sure. Well, I'm the asset director for BCT. We're gearing up for our summer show, which is Mary Poppins, opening at the end of the month. Tickets are on sale now. Basically, it's different than the movie, but it's still the same premise. Mary comes to London to save the Banks family. We have a very talented cast. Olivia, I'm going to butcher her last name, Insani from Wesleyan, a wonderful vocal student. She plays my Mary, I'm Herbert. So my calves are hurting from dancing so much. But it's one of the most physical shows that we've done in years, but it's an awesome family show that we decided to do in conjunction with our children's camp that just ended last week, that we partnered with the Dance Factory for as well. We had 18 campers, and Friday we gave a little show over at Lore called Swamped. And then next week we actually have auditions coming up for our fall show, which is Dracula. It's something that's been requested of us for years, and that will be at the Colonial. So it's going to be a bloody good time for that one, pun intended. But we're always looking for volunteers, rather with the house or help with the kids or props, especially set building with this one. Any volunteers that would like to help, please contact Laura Meese, our director. We've never turned down help. It's always a great way to get involved with the community. It's how I got involved with Buckhannon when I moved here. So something I'm passionate about. We're gearing up for our 50th season here soon, so we're getting excited for that. And then the 20th, I will be helping with the fundraiser for the Colonial. So you guys will get a sneak peek of the show there. And we'll also be giving away our second Jim Knorr Award. Can't say who that is yet, but we can say that the lady that we voted for this year is very deserving of it. So.
Can you give us the dates and the time?
Mary Poppins will be, let me look out the window. It's right next door. It's the last weekend of the month. I think it's Thursday through Sunday. And then the 20th is the fundraiser for the Colonial. And then I believe it's late October for Dracula. I could flex.
24th to the 27th, I think.
Last weekend.
I think that's what
So it's going to be a great season. We did have to cancel our spring show due to several different conflicts, but we believe these two shows will make up for missing one. So
We have three night performances
and a matinee on Sunday.
Isn't there also you guys are collaborating with Art 26201 to do a variety show at the end of the month?
Yeah, the 20th for the KB will be hosting that. We have several of our performers as well as, I believe, Vintage Theater and some of their Shakespeare performers will come in to do a few selections to showcase what the Colonial is eventually going to be. We're excited about that. We do have several children performers coming out for that as well. Some of our younger students that's learning with us this summer. This summer we actually have our first student director working with us. She's a wonderful high schooler, very strict, one of the best directors I've worked with, so she's got a bright future ahead of her. And our choreographer, Xavier, he's actually accepted, I believe, into Harvard, so this is his summer project before he goes off to Ivy League. So we have a lot of talent that Buckhannon's bringing in. BCT's growing every year, so it's growing faster than we can handle sometimes, but as long as we're growing, it's growing.
That's a good challenge.
It is. I mean, just the level of talent for this show that came out, we were surprised to see not one single person couldn't dance, no one couldn't sing. So it's really a community effort this year, and all the kids are excited. This is, I'd say 75% of the show, this is their first show that they've been in. And Eric, the athletic trainer or director, forget his actual title, for Wesleyan, Eric Jett, he's actually our Mr. Banks, so if you've ever met him, he's a towering hulk of a person, and to see him dance is pretty hysterical, but he's actually pretty graceful, so. It's one of those shows that I'm very proud to say my name's attached to as a cast member, but also as part of the creative team as well, so. We hope you guys come out and support the arts.
We'll break a leg, as they say, right?
And I hope not to, because I gotta go to tango, so I will see you guys.
All right, Dan, thanks for coming. Appreciate it. All right, we were going to recognize Brad and Kim Lincecum. This is the second time we thought they would be here to accept their best award, but unless they sneak in somewhere during the meeting, we'll recognize them a bit later. But, next up is Laura Meadows, the Executive Director of the Upshur County CBB, to bring us her annual report. Laura, how's it going?
Hi guys.
Hi, Laura. How are those Meadows boys doing?
Wild.
Yeah.
How old are they now, Laura?
Harlan's 4 and my youngest just turned 3.
Good, that's great.
People know when they're around. Pam gets to see them in church. They don't run as often because they know I'll grab them, but they're still wild. They're cute though. I know you have this information in your packets, but the color one's just prettier. And I'll give all you a copy too. So this is our annual report for fiscal year 2018-2019 that we just wrapped up. So once a year I come and I just give you all a quick overview of what we've accomplished in this past year, what we're looking forward to for next year, and just get any feedback from you. So I'll just kind of flow through this. We pointed this out in our annual board meeting. Last year was the very last year that I used this fabulous photo taken by Robbie Skinner. I loved it. It was whenever the tulips were full in the Main Street planters, and it was just the best photo, and I could use it in tons of places. But Sean in our office said he was getting sick and tired of using it, so I promised that I wouldn't use it this year, and I haven't. So I found some other flower photos, but
What time Sean get in the morning?
I know! It's a really good photo. But so this, as we transitioned into this current fiscal year, we had kind of really overhauled our creative messaging tagline. You know, we used to, whenever the organization first started, we stuck with the tagline, what small town charm is all about. And it really stuck, and it really kind of connected with Buckhannon, and a lot of people could get on board with that. And it was really positive, but I think I was ready for a change. We needed to freshen up our messaging a little bit. So we transitioned into this small town getaway, big time charm tagline, and it's been really successful because one of the big things that we've really been trying to focus this past year and ongoing is Buckhannon's more than just our Main Street. Right now, people really, if they hear Buckhannon, they immediately associate our Main Street with Buckhannon, which is great. I mean, people know us for our flowers, for the shops, for the restaurants, but there's so much more outside of our Main Street. So that's what we're trying to expand on, and this tagline really helps us do that. So our entire organization's just about promoting and supporting tourism industry in this area. So, you know, if there's a local group like BCT, we're happy to partner with them. We do active advertising with them. Any kind of community group that's promoting or putting on a tourism-related event, we're happy to work with them. So it's all about promotion, public relations, communications, and just getting the word out there to people outside of our Buckhannon area. This past year, some of our main goals that we were able to accomplish, one was new photography. It's a constant struggle. Whenever we're doing promotions, we're doing advertising, the imagery is the most important part. And I'm incredibly picky about our photography. So this past year, we've really been trying to campaign and work with different people to get new photos of our area, and it's going to be an ongoing struggle. I think it's just going to be something we're always going to request from people. So if you have a really great photo and you think we can use it and you're happy for us to use it in our publications, then just shoot it over to us and we'll see where we can fit it into, you know, social media spots, our website, all that fun stuff. We've really focused on the outdoors. We've partnered a lot with Audra State Park, the Wildlife Center, even James Curry Park in the southern end of the county. We've worked a lot with any community group that's working on river access or trail access. The guys with Upshur County Trails have been really supportive and really just eager to develop kind of this outdoor recreation system within Upshur County. So we're really trying to partner with those people and just showcase that it is here in Upshur County. It is being developed more and more. And I think in 5 to 10 years, the outdoor recreation is going to be just that much bigger than what it is now. I think we're really going to see a lot of things happen in the next few years. We've also really focused on editorial. It's different than editorial. You know, editorial is the traditional, somebody comes in, they write a story on you because they think that Buckhannon has something really amazing going on. But one big shift in the tourism industry is, you know, everybody used to take out print advertisements, and you'd see this block ad, and it was clearly an advertisement. And what do you do whenever you're flipping through a magazine? You go right over it. And you want to read those stories, those human interest stories. So we really wanted to do these editorials, which is basically paid articles. And there's some really great photos that are coordinated with the article, but we've worked with My Buckhannon. We have a series of 5 different articles. Our first one was a Then and Now series, if you remember it. It was a huge, huge, huge project, and Katie actually, she went through a lot of data for that. But it was phenomenal to hear all these people come and talk about Buckhannon, talk about all their memories of the town. Our second piece was about Strawberry Festival and all the fun food that you can have during the Strawberry Festival. Our third piece coming up is going to work a lot with Wesleyan alumni. And then our fourth and fifth piece will be coming out in the fall and winter. So we've really been trying to not just do these print advertisements, but focus on this editorial where we get these human interest stories. Not only with My Buckhannon, but we did a partnership campaign with a lot of tourism partners from Kentucky throughout West Virginia and into Pennsylvania. It was called Traveling 119. And a travel writer was hired, and they started in Pikeville, Kentucky, and they traveled through 119 all the way up into, I don't know where it ended, in Pennsylvania. But they came through Buckhannon, and they took some great photos, and they've continuously been putting things out there on Instagram, and they had photos, and they took video shots, and they've been, just broadcasting what they found along the way. And the PR that we got for Buckhannon was amazing. And it was all free for us, so that was great. So those were some of the things we had for this past year, some goals that we had that we were able to meet. And just to shift gears a little bit, we also do manage the event center at Brushy Fork, and one of our big goals for this past year was really just increasing our rental revenue, and we were able to achieve that. We exceeded it by $3,000, so for us that was a huge deal. Going into the event center, we knew we would never really turn a profit on it. It was never going to be a money maker, but whenever we know we can at least cover our expenses, it's a really great year. And we've been able to do that the past 2 years. And it's growing every single year. In September and October, every weekend is booked. We've had a lot of people where we've had to turn them away because it's already booked. We've had to kind of shift dates around. Sean's really good at trying to stay incredibly flexible with people. He was able to get the Shriners back this year, so that's been the big deal. So the Shriners will come back in October. They'll be back in Buckhannon. We're going to fit 400 people in our building. It's going to be really great.
That's great.
Yeah, it really has been. And it was all Sean. I mean, Sean was the one that actively worked with them and talked to them. And I mean, it's been years and years of just talking and working and talking and working, but it's finally worked out. So we were happy for that. I'll go to where you see CVV numbers. This is just a really quick overview. The Facebook impressions, Facebook engagements. Impressions, just whenever people just see something about the Upshur County Visitor Center on Facebook. They might not directly engage with us. They might not like something or comment on something or click on something, but they're seeing our branding out there. They see that tagline, small town getaway, big town charm. They're seeing our imagery, so they're getting some kind of taste of Buckhannon and Upshur County. Facebook engagements, that's whenever somebody actually likes something, they comment on something. I mean, they're showing a direct interest in what we're putting out there. So you can kind of narrow this stuff down more and more, and you can figure out, where they were from, and whenever they got to our website, what pages did they go to, and how long were they on each page. So you can really get into what your demographic is interested in and who you should really be targeting and what they want versus what they don't want. You can kind of shift your messaging around that. So it's really interesting to look at all of these insights. Our Instagram account is slowly growing. We had a 33% increase this past year. It's not as active as our Facebook account, just because our Facebook demographic is typically an older market, which is more of a Buckhannon target market for us. Instagram is much more of a younger demographic, but there's still a following there, so it's been successful. Our e-newsletter, that's been something that's been really successful this past year. We continually get sign-ups over daily we get people signing up for our e-newsletter, and we send out about 1, maybe 2 a month. So it's nothing overwhelming, and it's just, seasonal updates or a specific topic about Upshur County. And they're always fun to do. Our website had a drastic increase. Last year we had completely overhauled our website, and we had a lot of adjustments to kind of go into that as we were rebranding. But this past year we really kind of hammered it, and we got a lot of traffic driven into our website, and it was really good. And then distribution, we distributed 4,500 of the Upshur County travel guides, and then as a service to our tourism industry partners, we distribute their materials as well. So the Wildlife Center, Strawberry Festival, Festival Fridays, Ron Hinkle Glass, anybody that has a tangible piece of literature, we send it out throughout the state. And then you can see our revenue for the event center. We had a little small dip there in fiscal year 16-17, but we've gradually increased that. And then on the back, you can just see an overview of some of the ads that we've ran this past year. It's all pretty consistent. It's all image focused, very short, sweet, to the point text. Yeah. It's been a really fun year. I'm looking forward to this upcoming year. I always like July 1st because it feels like January 1st. It's kind of that fresh year. My desk is nice and clean. Everything's kind of in the right folders. But this year, I think really we're going to continue what we've been doing. There's not a huge project that we have coming up. We're going to work on getting new photos. We're going to perfect our social media game a little bit more. We're going to partner with the state on some things. But yeah.
I think the local bear community might have gotten a hold of this, because they came to say hello.
Yeah, I didn't even
That's
think
cute.
of that, but I saw somebody else, they commented on that as well.
That was
It's
selected.
a good
while back.
photo. Does anybody have any questions?
Questions, Laura?
How many hotel rooms are in Buckhannon and how many hotel rooms are in Upshur County?
Well, all of our hotels are within the city limits, but it's right around like 230-ish. I have the exact count in my office, yeah. Yeah, all the hotel, like the traditional lodging facilities are within city limits, and then there are vacation rental by owner and Airbnbs in the county. And we've worked with the county to collect the hotel motel tax there too.
Other questions for Laura? Keep up the great work.
Thanks.
If you need something, give a shout. Thanks, Laura. Next up is Deborah Brockelman. Did you bring Michelle with you?
Yes, I did.
There she is. She's back there hiding in the back row. So, do you want to introduce her, and then we'll hear from you in just a little bit?
Well, yes. This is Michelle Harder. She's our new programs coordinator. She started about 2 weeks ago, and she's getting her feet wet with all the craziness that we do across the street, and just learning how we do things. This is Michelle.
Took her about 10, 12 days to get here because tell us where you were located in the last 17 years, Michelle.
For the last 17 years, I was stuck in North Pole, Alaska.
Where in Alaska?
North Pole, 99705. It's for real.
What were you doing up there?
Wishing I was here.
Making toys.
It's not an elf. I worked at North Pole High School. Whose
Really?
mascot's
North Pole High
Patriot.
School?
It's a patriot, not an elf. I worked there. I worked for Department of Transportation there for a little bit. Coached cheerleading, just a little bit of this, a little bit of that. Just biding my time so I could get home.
Where are you from originally?
I grew up in Fairmont.
Okay.
But has family here in the Buckhannon area.
I've had family here for a long time, here at Tucker County, yeah.
Well, welcome to Buckhannon.
Well, thanks. It's like being home.
We'll look forward to getting to know you better, Michelle. Glad to have you as part of our city family. Emo Butcher, Micrologic is here. You're up next, Butch.
Thank you, Mayor, council members. As many of you know, we operate a large commercial wireless network in Upshur County and actually 8 other surrounding counties. And we, what we're looking to offer the city is we would like to take over management of the city's intranet wireless network for a sum total of $0. We currently offer free Wi-Fi to the Brushy Fork Event Center and also at the Upshur County Pool. And we would like to do the same thing. We would like to get internet at the Jawbone Park as well, so that the vendors could take credit cards and have access to internet for activities that go on there. The only thing that we ask is we can tout it as a joint effort between Micrologic and the city of Buckhannon as a way to give back to community. We have several hundred customers in and around the city of Buckhannon and Upshur County, and the wireless network that the city has that it runs its private network on actually impedes with our business ability to do business in certain areas. Our network is we monitor it and maintain it. It's all battery backed up. I know from talking with Jay Holland a little bit, I know a little bit about the network, not all the details obviously, but I think most of the area that it covers, we actually have probably better coverage. And we also have currently 19 new transmitter sites scheduled for Upshur County within the next 18 months. So we're going to have extremely good coverage. We carry water tank data for the Barber County PSD, some other PSDs. We do a lot of that similar data, and we can let that data ride on our network at minimal cost to us, which would save the city maintenance and management on the network, as well as our network is probably maintained, reluctant to say, at a higher quality. I mean, obviously, that's our first priority, is to maintain that. So if there's a national emergency or disaster or whatever, if you guys remember when Duratio was here, we had one of the only operating networks in the county. In fact, the National Guard came to us and said, "Can you get us connectivity? We can't communicate." So it's privately ran. It is our core business, and we would like to offer that in exchange for the city. We would also like to put, we'd like to get some webcams on Main Street, maybe at Jawbone Park. We used to have one on top of the city building probably 15 years ago, a long time. It hasn't been operational for a while. We'd like to actually revamp all that and get some, to help further our online presence as well as the city's. When we had that webcam up there, we used to get calls from people from all over the country. If it weren't operating, we would get calls from people in Alaska or wherever. It was really amazing. People call and say, "Hey, I like to log on. I really miss, I don't live there anymore, but I like to watch Main Street and see what's going on." And I think it would be a good thing for the city, as well as we can get some advertising through that. And like I said, we would offer that at no cost to the city.
Can you work us up a proposal so that we can designate a committee to look at it and start a conversation? Does that sound like something?
Yeah, and I've talked with Jay a little bit about, I know you guys do, you need some connectivity that you don't have in places that I think we do cover. And I think the list that I had from him, started talking to him about 6 months ago. I think there were only 2 locations that we couldn't currently cover then. That may be down to 0 now. So I think our network, I'm sure, covers a lot vaster area than the city's current network. And I know that we have a transmitter on top of the St. Joe's water tank that's, I'm sure you're aware, is being torn down here in about 6 days, I think. We're replacing that. But I know I was up there and actually talked to Jay. The tower that the city has, 2 of the 3 guide wires are down, they're broken. So that tower is in danger of falling. So, those kind of maintenance things, if we put it on our network, what we would like to do is either basically either decommission all of that equipment and move it over to our equipment, or if there are places that your equipment gets that we don't, we would take over all the maintenance and basically keep it running and bring it up to our network standards. So you'd have battery backup and, I think probably more reliable connectivity long term.
Why don't you try to get us a proposal by the next meeting, or as soon as you can?
Sure.
And then we'll designate a committee. I know that Amby and Jerry and Jay should all be on that to give us some technical advice, recommendations, that kind of stuff.
Sure.
The sooner you can get us something in writing and take a peek at it, the sooner we might consider it.
Okay.
When did you start Micrologics? How long has it been?
1994. Yeah.
25 years.
25 years, I guess.
Silver anniversary.
Yeah, something like that. So my gray hair is not it's not my age. It comes from RF exposure.
Other questions for Mr. Butcher?
Well, that sounds great. That sounds really good. Appreciate you bringing that to our attention.
And I have one question. A friend of mine lives way out, like going off the Elkins Road out there. Anyways, she stopped me in the Wally World and said that about the one at the hospital being taken down.
Mm-hmm.
And the people that live down below her, they're lower, and they won't get a signal, which they will.
Possibly. Actually, we're looking to replace that site with actually 2 other sites.
Pardon me.
And we have other sites, additional sites planned as well. But that particular site's been there, we've actually been transmitting from atop that tank for, not since '94, but probably 2001 or something like that. It's been a long time. Yeah.
It's line of sight, right? That's the way you all are.
The oldest technology we have, the best technology we have, yes, is line of sight. But we are deploying lots of what we call near line of sight. So if you have a mountain in the way, that's too bad. But if it's some trees, we can, and our density is getting much better. We're, without getting real technical, but we're starting to do more what we call micro pops, where we'll come to a neighborhood and set like just a single phone pole that transmits and picks up, just the houses in that particular area. And we're getting more and more of those, and that allows us actually to offer much faster speeds at a better competitive price.
Sure.
Okay.
Well, I have the service, and it's fantastic. I've had it for several years, and I've never had a problem. So.
Well, get us something to eye up and we'll go from there.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Bush.
Next up is Rob Hinton. He's going to tell us all about the Innovation Center down on Spring Street. There's a lot of brick down there.
On a concrete board too.
Thank you, City Council. Appreciate the opportunity to come down here and give you guys an update. Obviously, you guys have all noticed that the Innovation Center is approaching the runway and hopefully going to be finished soon. Substantial completion, we're hoping by the end of the month. We do have the contractor here. He's doing an awesome job down there, and the quality of work is pretty impressive. The facade, we've had several compliments on the facade. I think everyone agrees that the brick that was chosen, I won't name who chose the brick, but she did an awesome job in making the final selection and speaking up at our board meeting. And I think the overall sentiment is that the building does, when you come down Main Street, does fit nicely in our downtown, and so I think collectively we've done a pretty good job at that. I want to go over a couple of high points today. I'll be brief, which doesn't happen often, but I'll be brief. And then there's an item that we want to discuss with council that has come up in the recent past week, and with the timing of being completed, we needed to bring it to council's attention. So all in, the project is going to be roughly $3.7 million in total cost. There was a grant that was associated with that, but all in, the Development Authority will have contributed $1.4 million in debt, so definitely taken a considerable risk, and obviously for my sake, because I want to keep a job, I hope it works out. It's nice to have the walkway removed from out in front. Obviously any change in normal pedestrian walkway, and then, Spring Street being closed, obviously, that's never easy. And we do apologize for the inconvenience, and hopefully we'll be able to clear the street quickly and get the sidewalk put back in, and everything will be back to normal. As far as the businesses that are going in, UCDA is going to be moving across the street, so we'll be moving out of the bank and moving into the second floor there. Region 7 will also be moving into the second floor. And then our SBDC, our small business coach, does a tremendous job here in the area. We'll be moving in as well. And it was really a good idea for us to try to bring all of these resources together, have it in one-stop shop, so to speak. That will take up probably, I'd say 40%, 30%, 35, 40% of the second floor. Then the rest of the second floor is going to be what's called co-working space. Can also be defined as flex office space. This is a really unique thing for a small rural community to have that's very prevalent in larger markets. There's lots of companies that are coming out with these models that are opening up in New Orleans and Miami and Nashville. And what we'll have the ability to do is we'll have professional office space, modern professional office space with all the amenities, connectivity, printing services that businesses, startups can rent today. So they don't have to wait on a build out. They can rent for a really inexpensive cost, and they can rent on a month-to-month basis. I will make a sales pitch. We do have 6 dedicated offices, which is obviously the premier of the co-working space. A dedicated office is the most expensive, but if you commit to a year, you get a month free. So that's a good deal. We do have CityNet, and I broke Butch's heart earlier this week when I told him we do have Butch's service. We will have CityNet, that's a fiber provider, that's going to be coming to the building and running a trunk line to the building. What that means is that capacity at the building is really not going to be limited. There's going to be plenty of bandwidth capacity, which is key to recruiting a knowledge-based business. The co-working space will have a dedicated 1 gig by 1 gig connection, which that's 1,000 megabits. The advantage is that Butch's company will still be present at the Innovation Center. He's actually going to put a tower on top of the building, well, sled, not a tower. And you'll have choices. So any tenant in there will have choices. They can go with Suddenlink, they can go with Micrologic, they can go with CityNet. They'll have choices to whatever meets their demand or whatever meets their needs. The other thing that's unique about the situation is that CityNet will have a spot in our mechanical room that they will be able to put in their equipment, and then they will be able to use that as a central office, which will save them some money, which hopefully will expedite fiber to the premise deployment in the city of Buckhannon. So once they get to the building, the city of Buckhannon has become a really, really connected place, and we've become a gigabit city, and we can start advertising that as such. And we can start advertising fiber to the premise is available in the city of Buckhannon. And that's huge as we move into the, further into the 21st century. We're already in it. But as we move further into the 21st century, businesses want to hear that. They want to hear that they have the ability to, well, I can buy a 25 meg service, and if I need to, I can buy a fiber connected gig level service. So that's very important for us to have, which brings us to the third floor. Third floor is kind of our premier space that we're marketing, and one of the main reasons that we built the building is we want to recruit a knowledge-based business to the city of Buckhannon. We want to have a business here that aligns with the skill sets that are coming out of college, that our college students are coming out and graduating with. We don't have enough of those opportunities in this state, and we need to increase the amount of opportunities in this state. You can see the proof is in the pudding. Intuit announced going to Bluefield. Really caught everybody off guard, to be honest with you, but they made it and came to Bluefield. So knowledge-based businesses are looking for rural communities to move to and migrate to. The cost of doing business in West Virginia overall is tremendously less than that in West Coast, California, Northern Virginia, New York, so on and so on. And so Infor was another company that just announced they're coming to Charleston, probably anywhere between 300 and 500 employees down in Charleston. So these are the companies that we're trying to talk to, obviously see if they want to do another footprint in Buckhannon, but we're also talking with IBM, Microsoft, and other companies that we want to try and attract. And we have all of the core components that these companies will be looking for: great quality of life, institutional higher ed, traditional, high-end traditional institution of higher ed, private college here that turns out bright students. So we have what's the word I'm looking for? What's the word, Laura? Workforce.
Synergies.
What's that?
Synergy.
Synergies. Yeah, we're hitting all these words, aren't we? We're like playing that catchphrase.
Innovativeness and
Talent pool. That's what I was after. Talent pool. So and we've got some letters of intent. We got one letter of intent for the first floor. We're looking for retail, walk-up type business, restaurant, whatever. Starbucks is not coming here, so I just want to make sure everybody understands that. This was too small a market for them. They were interested at one point, but not now. So we're looking, from the standpoint of trying to make some accommodations for either some small businesses that have popped up, like let's say in Charleston, one of my favorite places to eat is Tricky Fish, right down by the Capitol. Really unique place to eat. It has fish tacos, and a sucker for fish tacos. But maybe I'll see if they would come here, or some other West Virginia type business like that. So we have two other letter of intents that have gone out for the first floor, but they have not come back signed. So can't really count on those commitments being serious. Any questions about the building, about what's going on?
Questions, Rob?
I'll move into the next item.
I think we're good.
Okay. The next item that we want to discuss is something that happened over the last week, and we met this morning down at Spring Street, and in early June, myself and Jim Decker from Thrasher and Chris Dozier from the Dan Hill Construction Company, we consistently, either all three of us or one or two of us, meet with either Jerry Arnold or Bryson or somebody from the city to talk about different milestones that are coming up on the building. And one of the things that we met for in June was to talk about the sidewalk on Spring Street. The building's going to be stepped, and so the design for the sidewalk was very challenging to make sure that the building flows with the street, because we didn't want to have the stairs at the end of the building, and so we wanted it to flow with the terrain. So during the meeting, we looked at the design. Bryson and Jim and Chris discussed, the technical issues and things of that nature. And Bryson was looking at it, and one of the recommendations that Bryson made was, go ahead and do your sidewalk as designed, and the city will take care of the street. And so there's a bit of confusion. This morning we talked about it, and there seems to be some additional cost that exceeds the streets department budget. And so in discussing that this morning, the best bet was to come to city council and discuss it with city council. The city council is the only body that can authorize more funding to be allocated to streets to cover the delta difference in the cost. And that's our request tonight, is that city council take into consideration the delta difference in cost for the streets that the streets department doesn't have, that possibly we could allocate that to get this project, the street actually completed. And I can answer any questions as it regards to
What's the estimated cost?
I believe what we know right now is $8,100.
Jerry, do you want to speak to that?
Well, it's $8,100 for a 60-foot section, and that's what rewind a little bit to where we're at. The sidewalk Rob's talking about was never, we didn't have the measurements on that sidewalk, what the finished grade would be until last week. Correct? It was never marked on the street. We didn't know what that finished depth was. The project on Spring Street has always been a typical 2-inch mill and overlay project. That's what it was presented to budgeting for. And the total depth of that excavation for their sidewalk, to accommodate their sidewalk, wasn't known until last week. As far as the additional cost, like I said, it's not the total project cost to take it to Main Street, which also eliminates one of the problems we have on Main Street with puddling at the end of one of the new ADA ramps, is about a $16,000 increase in cost for the total Spring Street paving project. But like I said, that's where we're at. I met with C.Ed Cooper last week, and he had actually marked on the street what the finished elevation of the sidewalk would be. And that's, at one point, the deepest depth was 7 3/4 inches, which takes us below the street surface into the subbase. So that section of street, for about 125 total feet from Main Street to what's essentially the end of the Innovation Center building, would be excavated down the subbase and then built back up with a base layer and then a base course of blacktop and then a finished course of blacktop. So that's where we're at.
My recollection as we left the meeting this morning was that Dan Hill was going to underwrite that first 8,100. We would be on the hook for anything eclipsing that. And then you had another conversation with Chris later today involving storm sewer stuff, revisiting that issue. You want to bring us up to
Yes,
speed
I
on
talked
that?
to Bruce later today, and we come to just an agreement that since that was taking place and we were doing the street, it would better serve the development authority instead of dumping their roof drains through slot drains in the sidewalk into the street, that we would extend the new storm sewer that we put in on Milkman Lane as part of the Traded Alley project. There's a 12-inch storm line that came out. We put a new storm drop about where the building starts on Milkman Lane, where the front edge of the building for the Traders Alley businesses, to extend that storm line on out to Spring Street to a drop to which they can connect their roof drains into and eliminate that water on Spring Street from dumping out across, well, under the sidewalk and into the street.
And that additional storm sewer work would be undertaken at the city's expense.
Yes.
So I guess what I'm getting at, I think Tom O'Neill's gonna have to get engaged, and we need to work up at least a letter agreement that's going to come to grips with these terms. Chris, is that still our understanding, is that first 8,100 would be absorbed by your company?
Mayor Daniel Construction stand by their word.
And if it eclipses that, then the city would be on the hook for that. Jerry's a good estimator. I mean, at one point, I was hearing $8,000 to $10,000, but if we're at 81 and it ends up being 10, council, the 1,900 or whatever it ends up being would be on the city.
That assumption is based on what conditions we currently know exist from where they excavated near the old sidewalk. And then and Chris, when I was up there today, I took another chunk of the second sidewalk that no one knew was there out. And it seems to be similar conditions under that sidewalk. So that assumption's based on that. If we don't run in, which I don't anticipate running into additional conditions, I think that estimate is a good estimate on what would be above and beyond our 2-inch overlay.
Well, Chris and Ziad have been great to work with. When we had our Strawberry Festival and all the issues of combination with construction and trying to get that festival in, they were accommodating with the site that we'd provided down at the end of Spring Street to let the Turners get in there to do their thing, and we appreciate that. So can we let Tom take a crack at working with Jerry and Chris and Dan Hill to put together a side agreement, basically, to facilitate the rebuilding, if you will, of the upper part of South Spring Street, and also re-engineering things to eliminate the stormwater in a better way. Is that our plan?
Pretty much sums it up.
Chris, am I catching it all pretty accurately?
Yeah, I didn't hear the part about that we would deduct that from B&O taxes.
What's the, Rob, when you said that Bryson made the comment that the city would be on the, you sort of delineated between the sidewalk and the street. Can you go over that again? Is that?
Sure.
Was that, did I hear that right? There was two different things that we're looking at, the street and the sidewalk?
Well,
we were looking at
their sidewalk, and then there's the other side of the sidewalk. So, go ahead.
Well, we were looking at the design of our sidewalk, and we wanted to meet with Bryson to go over what the options would be in this final design because of the elevation of the street, that to get the proper clearance on the curb, the sidewalk would be lower and the curb would be built up higher than the sidewalk in some sections. And that was kind of the solution if the street was going to stay the same. And during that meeting, it was determined by Bryson that the sidewalk could be built just as one unit. So the sidewalk height and the curb height are the same, and then they will adjust the street according to the design of the sidewalk.
There's another element to this, and Jim Decker may want to weigh in. Jay's back there as well from an engineering perspective. This is all ADA compliant because
That's correct.
you guys are committed to that, and as a city, we're committed to that. So I don't want anybody to think that, as Rob correctly used that step down kind of a thing relative to the building. There's not going to be steps. It'll be a smooth flowing, at least 12-to-1 grade ADA compliant sidewalk.
Into any of the doors in the building.
Right, right. So
But we're also taking care of the storm water drain, right?
we are revisiting the stormwater issue to take it down. When we started kicking this project around a couple of years ago, we hadn't ventured very far down the Traders Alley Milkman Lane project. When that project, as it was being developed by our streets and parks guys, they put storm sewer in about halfway up Milkman Lane. So this will allow us to put an inlet or two in down on South Spring Street to capture that water coming out of their place. Is that, am I
We're
capturing?
gonna add a little bit of water down Spring Street from Main Street once we
Sure.
redesign the street simply because of the flow. Right now, it flows down the gutter and it's ineffective at the, what would be the east corner of Spring Street there where they put the new ADA ramp. Anybody that's observed since the ramps went in, there's a puddle there. And that was brought up during the ADA exercise by PJ Samples about that ponding water at that corner. And if you look at the design of that street, North Spring Street is a gradual flow all the way down to where it crosses the tracks. But on South Spring Street, there's always been that hump. And that's where we're talking about the major problems for their sidewalk is where that crest is. And if you look at Main Street, where Main Street intersects Spring Street, there's essentially a trough there. The water gets trapped in that trough, and instead of flowing past the corner, it's now ponding, or some of it is ponding there, as well as right past where the barricades are for what's the temporary walkway in front of the innovation center. So it'll help with that, but it'll also increase some stormwater flow down South Spring Street. And by putting those drops in, it will intersect that before it has to. The first storm drop right now on South Spring Street is just below where Friendly Way intersects.
The Innovation Center is located on the western side of South Spring. You want to speak to the Sidewalk Assistance Program with Travis Foster on the east side of South Spring?
We've had discussion with Travis from the time he bought the building about, again, there was a sewer project done a couple years ago. And after that project was completed, well, Rasmus Rizzo was here then, and Raz said, you know, I'd really like to get a new sewer line up the side that Travis' sidewalk was on.
Santos.
Yes. And so we talked to Travis, and Travis was open to replacing his sidewalk and paying his cost, or his shared cost of replacing that sidewalk by paying the material costs. And I've talked with Travis, and of course he's going to go ahead and replace that sidewalk. We want to do that as part of this project, but that'll also help with providing a curb there and the appropriate height curb on that side of the street as well.
That goes to Milkman Lane. There's another half a block from the southern side of Milkman Lane going down to Joplin. What is our city's intention relative to that part of the
Total
side?
project, and the total project, again, that will probably not be completed with the paving project, but that has always been part of what was the Spring Street Quarter project to replace that sidewalk. And actually, in the original design that was proposed, and this is back when Jawbone Park, the plans for Jawbone Park was submitted back in 2011, 12, 10, in that neighborhood anyhow, that the green space actually was moved from the face of the buildings on Traders Alley out to the street to provide a more friendly walkable area.
What you're going to end up with, council, is a partially rebuilt street, 2 brand new sidewalks on the east and west side of South Spring, better storm sewer flow from Main Street all the way down the alley that will also take care of the increased flow coming from the new building.
And we'll have a letter of understanding that we cover everything beyond 8100, is that correct?
That's my understanding, and I think that's Chris's understanding.
Are you okay with that, Rob? Is that your understanding also based on your meeting?
What's that?
Is that your understanding also?
That's my understanding from Chris's conversation this morning, yes.
I got one other related question about the ADA curbing. I've had numerous phone calls about a lot of curbs are being redone. Is that true?
I think
I believe the
5.
Department of Highways has hired Wolf Creek contractors to do a lot of ADA compliance throughout the city of Buckhannon.
And the inspections required them to come back and,
Yeah, I think they've had
Do a
to come
handful
back
of
and
them.
do some modifications
But
to
if-
the asphalt paving.
Yeah, they're off by 1/16 of an inch, they have to redo them or
The
something?
Department of Highways handicap division is very strict.
very strict.
Is that common sense, or is that just sort of bureaucracy? Never mind.
Be
That's
careful.
muscle.
It's a rule.
If you were my client, I would say, I refuse to answer that question under the.
Well, rules are rules, but some rules are really stupid.
Well, that's what, but that's it, Dave, if you vary, and again, you know, one of the crossings was 3 business cards, the thickness of 3 business cards off on
Yeah.
the ramps. And they had to tear it out and redo the ramp. But the problem is if you make an exception to that rule for that, the
Yeah.
next guy
I
comes
understand
along, he's 5 business cards off, you know what I'm saying? You're gonna end up in issues, that's why they have that. And we have to abide by it, everyone has to abide by the same set of rules.
And who absorbs the cost?
The contract.
Contract.
We thought that was a big price for each one of those ramps, but as many times as we had it rebuilt.
Let's get back,
That's interesting, that's very interesting.
let's get back to this project.
When we met this morning, we left that meeting with the understanding that I did would start that concrete sidewalk Monday. This is a Davidson-Bacon project, and my wages for manpower are pretty high. So if I have the mindset of being able to start Monday, I'm bringing a pretty large crew to start, so I need to be productive.
Sure.
I guess my question is, I'm not sure how these meetings take place. I don't come to them a lot. I'm a builder.
Yeah.
Are we going to get something tonight or in the next day or two that, yes, we're going to put an inlet in?
Tom doesn't need to sleep. Tom,
It's
can you
not
have
on the
that?
agenda, you can't vote on it tonight. It's not, this matter's not on the agenda for any action.
Well, no, it is.
It is, yep.
It's under F6. Possible action, Spring Street.
Yes.
So I guess my question would be, if I'm here the whole meeting, I'll know when I leave here to man up the job.
Yeah, Tom, can we have something
Yes.
like tomorrow-ish, at least a draft for their folks to look at?
Yeah.
It's just gonna be a letter agreement if that works for you guys. I'll sign it, somebody with the company signs it.
Well, you need a motion for us to do.
Well, I'm gonna need a couple of them, but I wanna be sure we're all on the same page first. So does that timing work for you? And we wanna stay out of your way as long as we need to, but we also wanna get in there as soon as we can to start our work on the street. Is that correct, Jerry?
Yeah, can there be I mean, it's on the agenda, can you make a vote to do exactly what we said?
Absolutely.
And from our conversations, as long as we make the commitment to extend that storm sewer
Yeah.
to where Chris and I discussed today across Spring Street, that allows him to do that. And, you know, it'd be a matter of.
Jerry and Chris work out the details and Tom will put it in a letter agreement. But the first thing that we need to do is to take item F6 off of strategic and bring it to the table now so that we don't hold these guys up. A motion by Skinner and a second by Albaugh to bring F6 to the table. Is there any discussion on the motion? Hearing of the need for none, I'll call for that question. All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, like sign. Motion carries. F6 is now on the table and it is captioned, discussion and possible action South Spring Street, Upshur County Development Authority property. We all have heard from a number of players to this. Jerry and Chris from Dan Hill have come to an understanding. We know what our exposure could be, anything north of $8,100, plus our commitment to extend the storm sewer with inlets out to Spring Street. So everybody's on board with this. I'd entertain a motion that we do exactly what I just said. I have a motion by Mrs. Albaugh, a second by Mr. Sanders. That's your first second.
I wanted to write it in there.
That's good. Is there any discussion on the motion?
Well, I mean, the only thing, I mean, sitting here listening to this and being present at the meeting this morning, not to throw a fly in the ointment, but I mean, this is my opinion, but I would like to see us relieve them of the $8,100 and absorb the project. It's $8,100 is not a large sum of money for an organization of our size. What the Development Authority is bringing to the table in contractor B&O revenue and what the future revenue will be from this project, I believe that we should take this on and not ask the contractor for $8,100. I appreciate that the contractor is willing to come to that point, but being in business myself, I know where that's going to come from. That comes from a profit margin, and I believe in being friendly to business, and I believe that we should not ask them for $8,100 and absorb the project. Those are my feelings. Council may not agree with me. That's okay. I just wanted to throw that out there as
Jerry,
my point.
what's the cost of the storm sewer work that the city's going to undertake from the middle of Milkman Lane out to Spring Street? You got a ballpark figure on that?
Probably, I haven't done the project yet, but I would say somewhere in the $10,000 range.
Okay. So there is a substantial additional cost occurrence that you've discussed with Chris that would be our cost occurrence, not theirs. And the trade-off to have them contribute to the street cost is the $8,100, with us picking up anything more than the $8,100. Am I correct?
Yeah.
So we've heard from Mr. Skinner. Any other discussion on this?
Well, the only confusion I had, I guess, was when Rob said that Bryson in a meeting said that the city would cover the cost. And I just don't want I don't want any ill feelings with the contractor thinking that we were going to cover it at one point in time and then we're not going to do it unless it goes above $8,100. I just think it's a project that's almost $4 million and it's a great addition to the city. I can go either way with this. If the contractor's happy with what we're going to do, that's fine. If the $8,100 is going to be a sticky wicket, I don't think that's good either. So,
The motion that we have on the table.
I'm sort of indifferent.
The motion that we have on the table is that Dan Hill would pay $8,100 toward the street rebuild. We would contribute the $10,000-ish on the storm sewer extension to facilitate cost savings for Dan Hill relative to the storm sewer element of their project. That's the motion. We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion on the motion?
I mean, I'm not gonna. If that's agreed upon, I'll be fine with it as long as they're fine with it and everybody's fine. I just wanted to put it out there that those are my feelings. So
I've got a call for the question. All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries. We'll let Tom work with Chris and Jerry to work out the details. And if we can have something, if we could have something Thursday, Friday, Tom, for me to look at and send over to them, then they could really get their people in there Monday. You're trying to get them in there as soon as possible first next week, right?
I think we need to bend over backwards. so we can-
Productivity will make up $8,100.
Yeah, sure.
Is it enough for the motion that was approved tonight for Chris to mobilize his team and actually make the concrete decision? Are we concrete decision
I think we
to pour concrete on Monday?
Are we comfortable with that, Jerry?
Not sure, the council has made the commitment,
If
the
Jerry-
one thing that Chris needs is the storm sewer extension.
And you can get on that right away also, right?
If Jerry is comfortable with it.
Jerry's comfortable with
You guys
that.
can break it.
we're good on it. We'll let Tom crank out an agreement, but go ahead and start your mobilization
Was
process.
this almost a change order or something? I mean, was this original from the very beginning? Or?
Yeah, it'll be a change order for the storm sewer, because we didn't really intend to, we never wanted to dump out into Spring Street, so we're glad that the city's gonna put that over now, so we have to change from.
But that's between
Coming out.
you guys and your contractor. The city's not involved with the change order, but we're gonna facilitate the
Not unless
alternative.
you want to contribute to that change.
Nice try.
I'd like to say thank you to the contractor.
Well, it'll be, as nice as Trader's Alley is, I said this earlier today, South Spring Street will be as attractive as Trader's Alley is. I mean, the street will be great, the sidewalks are gonna look great. We'll have landscaping as we get further down across from the post office, and it's gonna look terrific. Building looks great, we appreciate it. All right, thanks, Al.
Thank you, council, appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Okay,
Thanks, Rob.
now we're into our department board reports. It's already 5 after 8, so Callie, you're up first, our information coordinator.
Well, in your packet, you have your report that I typically provide, and it starts out with the public relations and the social media, news type stuff first, as usual. Nothing too different to report there. We released today the Buckhannon Water Board's Consumer Confidence Report, and we had a story on Jawbone Park and the Pride Festival there. The Relay for Life, Upshur County, Relay for Life coming up, that got a lot of views.
What day is
And the
that?
First Energy Foundation gifted $10,000. I'm sorry, the date that you asked for, I think it's July 20th. Amanda can confirm that probably.
Yeah, that's what it says, July 20th.
So, Fox's Pizza and Carissa Chapman, their gift that got a lot of views as well. And of course, we had retirements with Charlie Ripple and Melvin Smith. And the art cab, I hope everyone's had a chance to check out the new mural behind Dairy Queen. And so those photos got a lot of participation as well. Been talking with Tom about continuing to develop a communications and social media policy, and we might be able to have that ready for you at the next meeting. And then I'll just move on right ahead to, grants. The Buckhannon Volunteer Center Coordinator position is open. Casey had her last day Monday, and so that is up on our website, has been, maybe a week, 10 days or so. And so it still will be until the 12th is the deadline on that. So if you know of anyone interested in applying for the Volunteer Center Coordinator position, please be sure to share that with them. We did, of course, receive the Families Leading Change check for the Nature and Gardening Program with Stalker. They'll be working with Deborah and Michelle to make sure we get that program going with a new time frame. And preparing our litter control report for last year's funding that we received, as well as working with Jeff Walmsley and Jerry to do the recycling truck bid from the recycling grant that we were awarded. Got the AML pilot submitted, so definitely that was a big relief. That deadline was yesterday, and that felt good. I've been working pretty hard on that, and so
You want to talk a little bit about that one?
Yeah, of course, that was a resubmission from last year. We did put in a proposal last year. We kind of built upon and expanded on that, and we ended up with a narrative, which I brought just a black and white copy today. But if any of you would like to see the full proposal, I can of course share that with you. It does provide funding would provide funding if awarded for extensions of the Riverwalk both to the north and to the south. The first phase connecting to the high school and ending at the Hampton, the new river access point there in Hampton. The second going from North Buckhannon Park, going through Hebner Cemetery and the historic sites there, through Pringle Tree Park, and to the UCDA property that's adjacent to another public river access point there at Post Mill, where the old Post Mill Bridge is, which is another historic site. And then phase 3 going from Hampton to the Sago Miners Memorial. So that would be the Riverwalk extensions. There's also connect to AML eligible sites. So this is through the Abandoned Minelands program. So that was part of it. We had to connect to some of these AML eligible sites. So it really was kind of fortuitous how that connected both with the extensions that had already been thought about for many years, and it kind of connected with this funding opportunity as well. And then, of course, the second big part of it would be the facility expansion at Stockert Youth and Community Center. We expanded upon the asking amount for that this year, but both provided the, the lower budgeted amount that would be more economical, the same as we did last year,
but many of you may be aware of a plan that was produced by Bryson Van Osteren and his architecture firm back in 2006. It's a beautiful brick exterior, so just felt like, hey, a lot of these awards have been more in the 3 to 5 million range through the AML pilot, so may as well provide that plan as an option that could be funded, but also provided the lower amount as well as an alternative, and we certainly hope they would go for the larger amount. That would be amazing.
Is that 2.7 million?
Final number was 3.7.
3.7.
That would be both the Stockert and all three of those extensions,
That would
and then the
include
total project amount being 4.6. That would include our capital campaign for Stockert, as well as a lot of the property where the trail would cross is either city, county, or UCDA, or the Board of Education property. So we have a lot of right-of-way that we can count as in-kind contribution. So that's how we get up to that number. I'd be happy to work through those.
That does
numbers in more
include the
detail.
$2 million variation of Stockert that Bryson had proposed
Yes.
12 years ago,
Right, exactly.
13 years ago.
That's great. Let's keep the prayer.
Yeah, keep our fingers crossed. This would, other than I'm thinking back during going on 37 years here, we had some tremendous grants for water and sewage, millions and millions of dollars in the 1980s. But since then, there's not been anything that's come down the pipe this big potentially for our city. So I got to tell you, were you here at the last meeting? I shouldn't sing your praises too many times. You want a raise. But Callie, the draft that I reviewed, edited, had input on last year was terrific. And this year, with the, I wouldn't say the criticisms, but the input that she had from the folks on the grant committee about you want to see more tourism stuff and commerce and those other elements, history, commitment. It's fabulous work. You did just a terrific job on it.
Well, thank you. And when you said that to me personally, and what I said then also is that it's really easy to write about projects that are so great and have been, they've had the whole community working on for years, if not decades in some cases. And so there was really a lot of good things to talk about. And you're right also, when Jerry and Jay and I were up at the grant award for the reef recycling award that we received back in December, I was able to talk to someone on that grant review committee, and they had shared with me that someone with the tourism office was involved with this, and they'd really like to see even more of the tourism angle amped up. And so that's why we included more talk about the new mountain biking trails out at the high school that the volunteer group has been working on so hard, and also all the neat art that we have downtown. And of course, worked with Tammy and Lori to really amp that up as well. So it really was a combined and group effort.
Callie presented this same information to the Stockert board just yesterday. And I said last year we were hopeful, but this year we're optimistic. It still doesn't get us any money, but we're feeling better about our chances this year.
Well, David, I think if you take a look at what we have received over the last 10, 15 years, the cumulative impact of grants, whether it's the conference center, the innovation center, the different sidewalk projects. I mean, we're talking millions and millions and millions of dollars.
Many millions, you're right.
And I think it's it's helpful for a small community to share that they've had these tremendous grants because they know the money's well spent. It's a good investment for our residents.
Well, we don't want to get too far out there tooting our own horn, but I think these programs, they want to send their dollars to places that have a proven success rate. And we've done very well by these commitments that we've undertaken. I didn't mean to interrupt you and hijack you there. It's back to Callie.
That's all I had to say on that.
Thanks, Callie.
We're still crossing our fingers and hoping on the 21st Century Community Learning Center grant that we submitted, as well as FEMA grant that worked with JB on, and then we did provide that letter of support to the National Night Out for the police department there. So that's all I have on the grants. Upcoming events, of course, shared today information about our Independence Day celebration on Friday and in conjunction with Festival Fridays. And also Stalkert's doing a lot of cool stuff during Festival Fridays. There will be Festival Fridays, kids activities with Stalkert, and then walk up to Main Street to see the fireworks. So it's going to be really great. This weekend, there's also another one of the U-Care pool parties for middle school students on the 6th. And Relay for Life is July 20th. There's another U-Care pool party, that one for the high school students that day as well. JB and I are working on planning the next CPR training through the Buckhannon Volunteer Center, and we're looking at July 22nd for that. And I guess I'll stop right there. I won't go into August since I know we're already long for the evening.
It's a happening place.
Yeah.
Thanks, Callie. Questions for Callie? Appreciate you. Keep up the great work. Next up is Deborah Brockelman on behalf of Steiger. Well, you kept Michelle there for the whole thing, didn't you?
Mean pause. Well, we're in the midst of Camp Buccaneer. We're about a month in. Very, very busy. We've got 60 campers a day, lots of field trips and activities, and it's just, everything's going really good. We've got a good group of kids, staff. It's really going well. We started the summer league last night. We're having 2 games a night, and now we have 8 teams. And today I've got phone calls wanting more teams to put in. So probably redoing the schedule. We'll probably be having 3 games a night now. Weather permitting, all of our games are on our outdoor court. But tonight we are using the office gym at the high school because the court was too wet to play on. So our building can't get built quick enough, just saying.
This is basketball, right?
Yes,
Okay.
this is the summer program. And as Callie reported, the U-Care pool parties, we have one Saturday night, and it's for the middle school kids. This month, July 8th through the August the 2nd, the Kids Summer Arts Camp starts back up. They had a couple weeks in June, and they'll be back on Monday. And the 4th of July event, we've been planning with the 4th of July committee, along with Stalker Youth Center. We'll be having several activities, the Duncan booth, a bounce house, a giant slide, an obstacle course. Buzz and Woody from Toy Story will be there. Climbing wall, carnival games are some of the fun activities that we'll have for kids and families. Our SYCC drill team will perform at 6 o'clock and the fireworks at 9:45. And for June, our youth involvement hours were 13,576.
That's great.
That's
Is that the highest you've ever had?
It is. It's summer camp is just booming. I mean, there's different kids a lot too, because kids go on vacation and the kids that were on the waiting list can come. So it's very busy.
Keep up the great work over there, Deborah. Other questions for Deborah? If not, next up is Jerry Arnold, our Public Works Director.
Thanks, Deborah.
Well, I think I have enough already, but at the top of my report says June 18th, so I've already given it, so I'm going.
Good seeing you, Jerry.
Yeah,
See ya.
good call.
He's got more hay to put in.
First cutting of it.
Yes, Water Department has completed about 90% of the tank paint at North Buckhannon. They're working on clearing brush for the installation of the early warning monitoring system. Changed the oil in the flocculator drives and set a VFD for the high service pumps. Justin Atwell has passed his Class 3 water plant operators test, so that's great to know.
Congratulations.
Sewer Department Crew 1 continues to work at Westview Acres, and Crew 2 completed 2 sewer taps and worked on the road at the plant. The maintenance crew is painting at the plant, and the plant crew is still moving sludge to Bill Roars. I think they completed that. Under Waste Department, we're working on some quality control measures to reduce the amount of contamination in our paper. We had a load, it was actually downgraded, not rejected last month, and we had a lengthy discussion at Waste Board about things that we can do to make our processes better. Street Department, we continue to work on the Traders Alley, trying to get that project finished up. Working on a couple small sidewalk projects on the Sidewalk Assistance Program. Still waiting on the notice to proceed on the Gateway West. Of course, we'll move right along with that. And now we'll also be starting on the Spring Street project, probably the first of the week, depending on if we can work alongside of Dan Hill and their schedule for their sidewalk. And we're doing some electrical work in the Colonial Theater. Under engineering, local flood control project, biannual inspection of the flood control project scheduled for July 31st with the Army Corps. FEMA generator projects number 1 and 2 will submit the required quarterly reports for both grants this Wednesday. ACP water system improvements project should be completed by the last of July. The asphalt overlay repair project, repairs to the 10 areas, was awarded to Cooper Asphalt. The storage tank inspections, the storage tank inspection project was awarded to Cortec Inc. out of Deep River, Connecticut on the 26th of June with a bid of $15,800 for the inspection of 5 storage tanks. The demolition of the St. Joseph's tank was awarded to Eisler Demolition Inc. out of Port Hope, Michigan on the 27th with a bid of $36,400. The North Buckhannon River Front Park Phase 2 grant, the cameras have been ordered, and the perimeter fence phases, the project will be out to bid soon. It'll be completed, has to be completed by the 31st of August, that project. So that's all I have, unless you have questions.
Questions for Mr. Arnold?
You and I talked about, I sent you a couple pictures maybe back in the winter, up on Kepner Street, that drain is sinking between 7 and 9 on the left-hand side. It's, walked past it the other day, it's sinking further.
I will let Buck know that, Robbie. I turned it over to them. I haven't heard of anything back on it.
There's a cone sitting over it, it's been there for a while, but it does need some attention.
I will let him know that. I know there was a proposed project in that neighborhood, but I think it's waiting on funding.
Okay.
Thanks, Jerry. Appreciate it. Tell all the guys we appreciate it. Please.
Thanks, Jerry.
Thank you.
Finance Director, Finance and Administration Director, Andy Jenkins.
And payroll.
My report will be pretty short.
Thank you, Amy.
We've been really busy.
We're broke.
No, we're not.
No, we're not.
That's not funny. So really busy closing out the books the last couple of weeks, and late nights here trying to get everything ready so we could be ready to end the 30th and begin the 1st. So installing budgets and closing books and paying bills and stopping things and starting things. It's just, I don't want to go into all the details, it's been busy. General fund ended up with, in checking, $611,882,000, and then the CD was $84,557, so your year-end balance on hand was $696,429. And we have a budget revision down in strategic that I'll go into more detail with what the balance on hand will affect with the budget revision. Coal tax checkings was $44,842, municipal stabilization $512,533, flood control checking $9,370, and then our auditors have completed our audit, and they plan to come in the next council meeting for a brief exit report. Everything seemed to go really well. They were in and out of here really before I knew it. I mean, it was an easy audit this year. And then Tom and I had several email exchanges to finalize signed contracts for the employee health insurance and ancillary insurance plans. Well, and then I forgot to say Stalker's capital campaign with the pledges included ended the year with $277,873. And again, I'll have a budget revision to talk to you about later.
Questions for Amby?
Put a receivable for $500 on the capital.
I was going to ask if you were.
Yeah. I'll do the whole thing.
Okay.
That's great. We appreciate that. Okay, Amby, thank you. Chief Kimball, how's it going, JB?
Good, how about you?
A lot of sirens yesterday.
Good, JB.
There's always lots of there. First of all, I'd like to encourage residents to use common sense with fireworks, not only this week, but all the time. Some of them are very dangerous, and of course, when you mix alcohol, it's not a good mix. So just please be careful. Respect your neighbors, especially here in town. If you live out in the country and you have 300 acres of land, you want to put off a boom, put off a boom. And just be careful doing it. But here in town, I'm sure Chief Gregory and his crew will be going here, there, and everywhere.
Well, they were doing some 2-3 nights ago.
Yeah, it's an ongoing thing when you get close.
And there's oil. They need to read the oil.
We're getting ready to start up our Ansel inspection system, inspecting cooking suppression systems in restaurants. So I just wanted to make the restaurants and have them aware that we have a list. We're just going to start in alphabetical order. We go through and they, depending on the usages, depends on how often they have to get them inspected. That is a fire marshal and FPA requirement. For example, a church, the limited use of the church, it's only once a year, but if it's a deep fry business that cooks every day, it's a semi-annual, twice a year occurrence. So just to make them aware, it won't be, we won't come in and shut you down, but we'll make you aware of the regulations and make sure that you get your system inspected. So the third thing, in the auction the city had, we liquidated engine 11, which was our oldest engine. Our apparatus committee for our new apparatus will continue to complete the specs for our new apparatus. And I would like to ask council, and I know it's not on the agenda to vote on, but I would like for you to think about this. The $33,000 the old truck sold for, I would prefer it go to either a down payment on a new piece of apparatus or to down the total amount owed on the ladder truck, one of the two, whichever you all specifically would like to do.
What's your preference?
The interest rate on the ladder truck's pretty low.
You might want to continue that.
Yeah, because the new truck, I mean, if we got another truck when the time comes, the volunteer zone that we're going to sell, so that'll be more money for a down payment. Plus, we're also looking at a USDA grant that we can probably get up to $60,000. So you're looking at, we're probably going to have $100,000 between the two trucks and the grant, or a little more than that, to put down. Every year, those new apparatus goes up anywhere from 9 to 11%, and when you're talking $350,000, $400,000, that's a lot. 9 to 11% is a lot of money. So
The amount I was remembering that we talked about last time was that truck that you wanted was going to cost about $500,000.
and that we're trying to find ways to save money.
Right.
That is a true rescue pumper vehicle. We actually, one night, the committee took all the equipment off the rescue truck, and we organized engine 1, our primary engine now, and we got all fire suppression and rescue equipment that was drastically needed on the truck, on that truck. So we found that out with a little bit of additional compartmentation on that truck, that we could deal with a regular pumper with a couple of additional compartments on it. So we're just trying to find ways to, if we can get in it for $424,000 instead of $500,000.
Right.
But we also need to update our equipment, and we're going to start talking to some people about maybe buying a couple of tools for us that are very expensive. When you look at hydraulic tools, each component's about $11,000.
JB, question for you. I know the answer to the question before I ask it, but the fact of the matter is the Buckhannon Fire Department answers about as many calls outside the corporate limits as you answer inside the corporate limits. So the question is begged, as we look at a truck that could cost somewhere between $400,000 and $500,000, and if you got $100,000+ in seed money and you need another $300,000+, is there opportunity Can we sit down with the county and negotiate their possible contribution of a substantial amount, maybe $100,000?
The opportunity to talk to them may be there very shortly. I don't know if you can get blood out of a turnip. I don't know that.
Let's have that conversation. And then let's work with Andy to see what financing would be available for that other $200,000 to try to see us into that new truck here in the next.
Yeah.
Like you say, it's a 10% increase per year.
Yeah, we want to hit that before if we can get that seed money in and get a contract. Because it takes a year to build a fire engine.
Right.
So it's not like if we put 33,000 or if the volunteers commit some money also. Say we put 50,000 down, the payment on the new truck will be a year later. So it's down the road.
Council, the other thing that's coming after January 1, we'll have the benefit of the sales tax. And I don't want to allocate and spend that money before we even collect it. But if we can lock in some low interest financing, and I think that's what we need to be looking at.
You also have the public safety complex that's paid off.
Yeah.
But I still think metro government's the way to go someday. I hope people will hang me in effigy. That's
Councilman, I truly believe, but until you get the other end of the street and other organizations on board, I'm all for it.
Yeah, I'm just saying someday I won't be alive to see it, but it's going to happen someday.
We have a lot of repetitive stuff purchased in the fire service. When you look at New York City, they have 5 rescue trucks that serve millions of people. We have 7 rescue trucks in Upshur County. So just that, keep that in mind, that people are buying $30,000 and $40,000 rescue tools at every fire station in Upshur County when they may not use them twice in 20 years.
Yeah.
And that goes back to prioritizing what you provide as a service and how well you're trained at it. You can buy a tool, and if you don't know how to use it, you're not going to be any more efficient at it. If you don't know how to drive a car, why buy a car? So.
It'll happen someday.
So.
You'll be up at that first meeting in August. Let's get together with the numbers, work with Andy. Let's see what we can put together and try to be able to at least move the ball a little further forward at the August meeting.
I'd also like to thank West Virginia Wesleyan College for the use of the Camden dorm buildings. I know nobody got a chance to come over. We received almost 400 hours of documented training. We had actually 11 members take the first 2-day class, and then we had 7 members take the 3-day class after that. And no matter what, we had guys from Wheeling, Charleston, the guys from Charlotte, the guy from Michigan, we had Bridgeport, Dunbar, and they took so much away from this. It was the best training, because we did make it lifelike. Normally a training you go in to rescue a fireman, it's like being in this room. You can see everything you do. We smoked the buildings up. We may have caught a couple rooms on fire accidentally, but we put them out. We were ready for that. But it was lifelike, and it was really enjoyable. It was hot. In the first 2-day class, we drank, the 30 people were there, over 500 bottles of water.
Wow.
If that tells you anything, it was very hot.
Hydrate yourself.
So, and that being said, lastly, I'd like to thank the members of the BFD, Buckhannon Fire Department, that helped prepare and participate in the training at Wesleyan. And I am blessed to have a crew of members that make up the Buckhannon Fire Department and want to make it known the amount of time these professionals commit to our community. 4 of those members took vacation from their jobs to take that class, okay? And I want you to remember that. 4 of those took vacation from their jobs to attend that class. And I'd also like to thank Chief Rick Harlow from the Adrian Fire Department. He sent 3 members that did the same thing. Those are the only 3 members outside of Buckhannon from Upshur County that took these 2 courses. That really saddened me. It really did. The opportunity that people had to go to those buildings from this county and not cost them anything. And it just saddens me. I really wanted to harp on that tonight.
Tell us how you really feel there.
Yeah.
More good stuff than said.
Yeah. They could have learned a lot. You had some of the best instructors in the country there, and some of the best buildings. We'll never have that opportunity. So, getting off that harping, our call volume there for the month of June was in there. Actually, it's probably one of the better months we've had, only 90 calls for the month, so that's 3 a day. And when you look at the statistics, 60% of our call volume is in the city, 40% is out. But I also want you to realize we do not respond to medical emergencies outside the city limits. If we did, it would be 70-30 the other way. So we do not automatically respond outside the corporate limits on medical emergencies. We just can't. It would overload our system. You're looking at another 1,500 to 2,000 calls a year, and we cannot do that. So, any questions?
Questions for JP?
I have something, not a question, but I want to say it publicly to you. I wish I could have been there for your show and tell over there with all that equipment and everything, and I missed that.
We had a blast. Oh, forgot to tell you, when you see Christy Kenny, ask her about her experience. She was jogging by with her son, and I think she had forgotten, but when she jogged by and saw the smoke, she stopped. We suited her up, and we had a room that had 0 visibility in it. I mean, it was just pure dark smoke. And when I opened the door for Joey to take her in, she had an anxiety attack, and basically we had to calm her down before we could get her to go back in. So I think, the only thing I told her, I said, you can take, you can't see anything. I mean, if you're claustrophobic, it's terrible. It's 150 degrees. But the only thing different would be in a normal fire, instead of being 150 degrees, it'd be 500 or 600 degrees. And that'd be the biggest difference. But not being able to see and using the thermal imaging cameras that we have to find people. I mean, we had firemen laying in there that you had to search for and find, and it was really realistic. So.
Yeah, what you see on TV is glorified. You can't see in a movie where they stage a fire scene. Yeah, you can't see anything.
You said she was jogging by and you grabbed her as a...
No, she saw the smoke and she stopped. Her son both, and maybe we recruited a fireman. He enjoyed it.
Or at least a commissioner will give us some money on a new
right. So if you get a chance, you see Christy,
I'll ask for her
I appreciate her
autograph.
stop mine doing it, but ask her about it. So.
Speaking of Christie, we should have, I can't remember what I was going to say. The census.
You in that census.
She's part of the damn census.
JB, can I get those specific thank yous before you leave tonight? Or a copy of your notes there?
Sure.
Okay.
Katie Kuba said she was going to do the census.
Katie
Wait,
Kuba.
what? I'm the one that told you you're on the committee.
Katie's just back from the whistle stop. Okay. City Attorney Tom O'Neill.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. I'll be brief because I think I'll be spending quite a bit more time up here shortly. The last couple weeks have been spent primarily in onboarding the new health insurance carrier for the city. Actually, the city's partially self-funded health insurance plan. That has been a it has been required a significant investment of time to get to the point where we are now, which we're not completely home yet, but we are switched over. Temporary employee ID cards have been distributed. The permanent cards should be coming within the next week or two. And then to kind of close out the next stage of this issue, we have the draft ordinance that we'll discuss shortly, but until then, I'd be happy to take any questions.
Questions for Tom? He's going to be back here in just a couple minutes. Thanks, Tom. We'll yell back to you here in a sec. Correspondence and information, you got a ridiculous amount of stuff. You've got a FOIA request from Smart Procure. Anybody, that's that same outfit that's sent it the last several years, I believe.
Yeah, they get thousands of records from us every 6 months or so.
There's a thank you letter to Arnett, Carbis, and Toothman for their work at the Stockton Youth Center doing some cleanup stuff. There's a proclamation and an article about the retirement of Lewisburg Mayor John Manchester. There's a proclamation that we did to the Buckhannon Upshur High School class 1979. There's some information from the state treasurer regarding an increase in fee for the law enforcement training fund. There's the newsletter for summer 2019 from the Buckhannon Volunteer Center. There's a city PR statement that Callie worked up for us for the First Energy Foundation $10,000 gift that we accepted last week toward the Colonial Theater renovation project. There's a thank you letter to Carissa Chapman for her $1,700 gift to the Stockard project. There's a letter to the VFW Post 3663 and American Legion Post 7 regarding proposed Kanawha Street improvements. And there's a letter to Michael Calger regarding the Zoning Board of Appeals. The consent agenda consists of 3 items. The approval of the minutes of our regular meeting from June 18, the approval of our building and wiring permits, and the approval of the payment of the general fund bills. I would entertain a motion that we approve our consent agenda.
So moved.
I have a motion by Mr. Skinner. May I have a second to his motion?
Second.
I have a second by Mr. Thomas. Is there discussion on the motion? Hearing of the need for none, I'll call for that question. All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, like sign, motion carries. We have 5 other strategic items that we will take up. A couple of them are going to be spent with Amby on budget revisions. The first one is approval of resolution 2019-07, budget revision number 1 for the general fund fiscal year 2019-20. Amby, you want to tell us about that one?
Yes, both of these budget revisions are by code that I need to have these done before the specific dates in July, which are about the 15th, so they're both on the agenda for tonight. Okay, so the unassigned fund balance in general fund, we budgeted to be estimated at $650,000, and like I told you before, we ended at $696,429. Of course, part of that, we did get that auction check in, and about $30,000 to general fund, so that may be part of it. So I had to add a $46,429 to the budget. The other item that we received was a $10,000 check through ARTS from the First Energy Foundation's donation. And of course, that check came in this month, so we're budgeting that into the theater building because that's where it will be expensed from. So you've got a total budget revision of $56,429. Like I said, the theater will go in, the $10,000 will go into the theater, but the $46,429, I just placed that in council's contingency for them to determine where they want to expend that from. Back in March, when we were working on this budget, there were several items left on the table and some requests, and I'll just briefly go over them. But you may want to consider allocating some of that tonight or not. I don't know. I know Festival Fridays was one of them that asked for $5,000, and of course they're working right now in their season and doing their events. The other is, of course, we didn't budget for Strawberry Festival, and I didn't do that even last year, budget until April of this year for their $5,000 donation. We also had $7,500 that goes towards the GIS mapping equipment. We will end up revisiting that and putting that in general fund at some point because we're getting ready to take bids on that. Then we left some foundation work indoors at City Hall, surveillance cameras, walkers at the fire department, LED lights, but we're hoping to have that as an overall city project. Just as a reminder, they had $25,000 side by side for the street department, $25,000 left for street project funds that we took out. And then, of course, JD wants to talk about this $30,000 payment towards a down payment on the truck. So that's the gist of your general fund budget. It's in your contingency for your determination at a later date, other than the $10,000 that's going to go to the theater. That's general fund.
You had estimated a $650,000 carryover, so the $696 and change leaves us $47,000 better off than what you had budgeted for.
Right.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Your total, just so you'll know, with that addition to it, your total contingency is $108,000. And of course, you'll have to allocate that the way you want it.
And our rainy day fund's over 500,000.
Yes, yes.
Amby has, she's hinting that she's recommending, I believe, I'm not trying to put words in her mouth, that we go ahead and allocate as part of that carryover, the $5,000 for the folks with Great Buckhannon and the Festival Friday program.
I think we should do it.
Yeah, is that your recommendation?
Well, you know, they're right in their season now.
Right.
The Strawberry Festival can wait. I mean, we're gonna be able to allocate to them later,
And
but,
we plan on that.
yeah. And we have for years, but we need to allocate
Get over and
theirs
done
in.
with.
So how about we do this? How about we do the resolution that you proposed, and then we'll take a vote on the allocation of the 5,000, or do you want to work that all into one?
Just do it all in one, because all I have to do is.
And we are
that's part
taking care of the fireworks as well, correct?
We have that $2,500 second half payment already in the budget.
Yeah.
But then again, next year, if you want to do that, we'll have to do it.
Need a roll call, right?
Well, let's get the,
So
may I have a motion that we approve resolution 2019-07? I heard Thomas first and Albaugh second. Is there discussion on the motion? I'll call for the question, and this would include a $5,000 allocation to Festival Friday immediately as part of that almost $47,000 carryover. All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, like sign. This particular resolution is in the state form, and they do not require a roll call vote, but for our minutes, let's go ahead and do it that way anyway. Mr. Thomas?
Yes.
Ms. Buckland?
Yes.
Mr. Sanders?
Yes.
Mr. Skinner?
Yes.
Mrs. Albaugh?
Yes.
And the mayor votes yes, so please execute that original resolution. And then we have a second one, Amby, that is Resolution 2019-08 on the coal severance tax for fiscal year
Yes, by code.
2019-20. You want to bring us up to speed on that one?
Yes, same thing, by code, we have to allocate the monies that are on the balance on hand, and we only committed $1,000 balance on hand, thinking Jerry may have used it for the street projects, but he didn't get that done June 30th, so we're bringing over $43,842 to those expenditures, which will make the total expenditures in coal tax $44,842.
Okay, you've heard Amby's explanation. So I would entertain a motion that we approve Resolution 2019-08. Thomas motion, Bucklew second, is that correct?
Yeah.
Is there discussion on that motion? Hearing of the need for none, I'll call for that question. All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Roll call vote. Mr. Thomas?
Yes.
Mrs. Bucklew?
Yes.
Mr. Sanders?
Yes.
Mr. Skinner?
Yes.
Mrs. Albaugh?
Yes.
And the mayor votes yes.
And you have the originals, correct? Yes, I think I see that. The originals
The original
to be
Oh,
signed.
That we need
to be signed.
I do.
Well, maybe not. Okay, I need to get you some originals.
Okay, yeah.
Okay.
Amby's right on top of it. Discussion draft ordinance number 437. This is not a first reading, but rather just discussion. We wanted to go slow with this, so we'd have time to process and digest and consider Tom's good words. And Tom, it's showtime.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So the council has before a draft version of proposed ordinance number 437. This ordinance will caption it the City of Buckhannon Employee Benefits Ordinance. The ordinance does a number of things. Like any good piece of legislation, it accomplishes a great deal in the definitions section. So for purposes of what we'll do is maybe we'll go through the functional part of the ordinance and then come back to to how we define certain terms and the reason that we define certain terms the way that we do as we work through this. And I don't know how much members of council, Mr. Mayor, you'd like to get into the weeds on this discussion, but I will start at 10,000 feet and then we can drill down from there as members desire. First of all, as directed and in keeping with the policy of the council, this ordinance is very clear that the status quo will be maintained for all current city employees, full-time city employees. As a matter of practice, for purposes of the ordinance, we set the trigger date as October 1st. So we define that as the higher date. What it means is that an individual whose most recent period of continuous full-time employment with the City of Buckhannon has to start before October 1st in order to receive the grandfathering provisions of this ordinance. That is, that the city's practice of paying 100% of the health insurance premium for family coverage will be maintained for all employees whose full-time employment begins before October 1st of 2019.
Tom, to be clear, you and I have talked about this, but for the council's edification and all of our employees, the vesting of this right, if you are a full-time employee with the city of Buckhannon, September 30th or prior, you have those rights for as long as you continuously stay in our employment. And by that, we mean such things as, you might have a single person who was in our employment prior to October 1, and now in 2022, they get married. And in 2024 and 2027, they have a couple of kids. That spouse, that future spouse and future children are covered 100% under our, because that employee was with us prior to October 1 of 2019.
That is correct.
That's very important.
For future full-time employees whose term of employment begins on or after October 1st, wait for the train.
It's good to hear a train for a change.
So for employees whose employment begins on or after October 1st of 2019, there are different types of coverages available. There are different contribution amounts for the employee to participate in those plans. Again, for the employee's own coverage, the city will continue to pay 100% of the premium. And granted, and I want to be clear about one thing, when we use the word premium, because we are engaged in a partially self-funded plan, the word premium, as is usually used, does not really cover the world that we are living in from an insurance perspective right now. But we defined the word premium in the definition section so as to cover any of the contributions that the city makes towards the city of Buckhannon's claims pool. Even though it is technically not a premium, we're going to treat those payments as premiums for purposes of this ordinance. So again, full-time employees with a hire date on or after October 1st of 2019, the city of Buckhannon will pay 100% of the premium for a full-time employee enrolled in the city's plan of insurance. Those future employees will be required to make certain contributions for spousal or child or family inclusion or enrollment in the health insurance plan. So for an employee plus their spouse, the employee would be required to contribute $150 per month towards the premium cost as defined in the ordinance. For employee plus child, the employee would be responsible for paying $125 per month. And that is based on the fact that the anticipated claims funding, I'm sorry.
Is it per month or per pay?
Per month. $125 per month, and then it will be half of that per, well, it's a little more complicated than that, but it's per month.
How do we come up with those numbers?
Those numbers are frankly, well, I'll tell you how I came up with them. They were, the $150 per month represents approximately 15% of the
Current
premium.
anticipated.
Well, the amount that we have to pay into the claims pool for a person who meets that criteria, for that coverage's criteria.
I got an issue with this.
Okay, well, I'm happy to, I mean, this is just a draft, and these numbers are frankly just placeholders.
Well,
until
you want
there's further
us to
instruction.
comment now? I mean, first of all, this is the first time I've heard of this. Although Amby did say something this afternoon to me that it was not a percentage now, it was based on an absolute dollar amount per month. per year. I think it ought to be a percentage, because if you have to make changes in the dollar amounts, you're gonna have to revise the ordinance. And if you have a percentage, you don't have to do that.
I have
So-
really nothing to base the percentage on, since we really.
Well, I think there's all sorts of programs out there that do it on a percentage basis that have partial self-funding, unless I'm totally out of sync today. And I also think that one of the concepts that I thought were important for years was to have the employee be somewhat responsible for their health insurance, the portion of their premium. I don't want it to be, I made a comment the last council meeting, I thought 20% would be onerous, because with the ACA, premiums have gone up so dramatically, it's ridiculous. And, maybe 10 or 15% would be more appropriate. But, we have an insurance committee, and I think some of this stuff needs to be talked about in more detail with that committee, and then come back to the council. Because we could spend we could spend 3 or 4 hours on something like this.
My position on our employees has always been that we should fund 100% of the employees' insurance costs. But as we get past October 1, spouses, of course, we got the carve-out provision in there too, and family members, at some level, however we calculated it, we dealt with percentages up until the last few days as this draft was being put together. That's a true statement, Dave. But I think we should commit, and this is something that can change in the future, but for now, we should commit to the new hires, and we're waiting to make some new hires. We're already down a couple in streets and parks. But we don't want to wait too much longer past October 1 to do this. I think we should pay 100% of those insurance premiums for our employees.
Well, that's your opinion, Dave.
Yeah, it is.
I think some of us have differences of opinions, but we want to be, I view our employees as we're investing in them.
Absolutely.
So we have to look at the total compensation, and, when we first started this whole process, I think we're all on board that, that's the first time I've heard you say we should pay 100% for the employee. I haven't heard that before.
That's been my intention and my position
Yeah.
from the very get-go.
Yeah, but you never said that in the meeting that I was aware of, unless I can't hear, but I always thought we were going to have an employee pay a portion, but we didn't want to be overdoing it either. That's been my assumption ever since we've been dealing with this. Robbie's on the committee. What's your position, Robbie?
Well, I understand what Amby's saying about trying to figure out an appropriate percentage and what that would cost. Generally, asterisk here, we're not a private employer. We're not a business. But out in the business world right now, and our agency group provides group health benefits throughout North Central West Virginia. It's typically an 80-20 split. But to your point, Dave Thomas, we've got employees not making a whole lot of money, and when you've got an employee making under $30,000 a year, and they're needing to come up with, a few $1,000 perhaps with their family and themselves for health insurance premium, that's prohibitive. There's no point in, they could find another position somewhere else that even if they had to pay a portion of their health insurance, they would make potentially more money. I would like, I kind of agree. I would like the insurance committee maybe to get together and try to crunch out some numbers as to try to figure out what is appropriate, because there are several unknowns here, especially going in with a new plan right off the bat. Because I don't want to harm future employees, nor do I want to become a place where people don't want to work because it's not feasible for them to work because they can't afford to work here. We want, and Jerry and Amby, I think, would agree, we have excellent, we all know this, we have excellent employees. They're efficient, they're effective at what they do every day. We want to continue that legacy. And in order to continue that legacy, to hire the very best we possibly can, we've got to be attractive, we've got to be competitive. And we've thrown out several ideas over several meetings that perhaps younger employees, they may not care as much about benefits right off the bat, but older employees, that's a major point of their decision making to come work here. I think we should. I would not be opposed to the Health Insurance Committee reconvening and looking at this and thrashing it out, point by point. This is, keep in mind, this is just a draft. We're not making any decision on it tonight at all. I agree with Dave Thomas. I think we could get together and look at some numbers, just to see what is possible, what is feasible, what perhaps maybe isn't feasible. This is a big deal. This is a huge philosophical change for the organization to go forth with this. So I like that we're taking our time. It's important that we take our time, and we don't want to screw this up, and we don't want to create any fear for any of our current employees. So that's where I'm at.
Abby, what does the county do? They have the employee contribute something, but it's
A flat amount.
it's like $50 a month or something.
25.
It varies a little bit, but yes, they pay a flat amount. And I checked with some other places, some do percentages, some do flat amounts.
Do we have an idea of what we're looking at in the next 5 to 10 years as a turnover, as far as, is it an aging workforce?
Next 10 years, we're going to have 25% turnover. At least.
When we did that survey, 44% of the city employees are over 45.
Yeah. But I think it was 25% would be 10 years.
And are the premiums, set premiums, like?
No, every year they change.
No, because with this partially self-funded plan, we fund a claims pool that is then drawn down as claims are submitted to the plan. We have a backstop high deductible insurance plan to cover any catastrophic losses, but we don't really pay a premium like you'd pay to Highmark or any other provider out there for send the money out the door and then you don't have to think about claims. We're in a position where we are partially funding our own claims. So what we are paying into that claims pool is not, in the strictest sense of the term, a premium. We are defining that payment into the claims pool as a premium for the purposes of this ordinance so that we can get the mechanical language in an ordinance that we need to in order to withhold from future employees a portion of those costs. But it is not a premium in the regular sense of the phrase.
Is there a model from an actuary standpoint that we can take a look at?
We have a document from the third-party administrator that gives us expected the expected cost or the amount that we need to budget to fund that claims fund on a month-to-month basis, depending upon the type of policy it is, whether it is a family policy, an employee plus children policy, an employee plus one child policy, or an employee plus spouse policy. Those are 4 options. And each one of those has a different dollar figure attached to it in order to what the budgeted amount should be for purposes of funding the claims or the claims fund. But
so barring a major catastrophe, we should have a formula that shows anticipated.
Well, we can tell what we are, well, again, because we're brand new at this, part of this is going on the representations of the professionals that have been involved in this process. But we are assured that given our backstop insurance policy, there is a particular dollar amount that we should not exceed in this first year. And we know what that is. That is a worst case scenario dollar amount, and we can fund, and I think we are funding the claims pool based on that worst case scenario, and we can work backwards from that and determine a monthly amount per plan. But that will change a year from now because our anticipated fund amount, may change or may not, but what will change is the cost for this catastrophic policy. And if that is brought to bear, if we have to make a claim against that backstop policy, the premium for it is going to go through the roof.
It's reinsurance. You're going out there, you're going to have 2 or 3 different levels of reinsurance based on the catastrophic happenings. But, it's going to change every year. You just never know what's going to happen out there.
Yeah.
And I think the insurance industry is scary in many ways. And
now we're in that business.
My heart goes out to both Amby and Tom with this. And I don't want to say that, I can be convinced that maybe we should pay 100% for the employee, but I think from a consumption standpoint, I've always felt that it was the employer to pay a portion for their own health coverage. And there's all different things you can do. You can have people that have to pay a higher amount because they're smokers. Some organizations do that. Or you get a credit for working out or something. It's crazy out there.
You want to talk about the carve-out?
Sure. The way the ordinance is structured, it provides for the city to pay premiums less the employee contribution for what we call in the ordinance a qualifying spouse's coverage. And we go back to the definition section to identify who is a qualifying spouse. So a qualifying spouse is the legal husband or wife, you have to be legally married in order to become a qualifying spouse, of a full-time employee who is either, one, not employed, or if they are employed, a qualifying spouse must not be eligible for the purchase of a health insurance plan for health insurance from their own employer. We clarify, because this is a situation that we have in the city, that any spouse who is an employee of a full-time employee, a spouse who is an employee of the city of Buckhannon is automatically a qualifying spouse for purposes of this ordinance. That's just a way to get around, because there is a certification procedure that this ordinance establishes. That is that the employee, the full-time employee seeking to enroll their spouse or the spouse have to attest to the city that, because this is the only way that we're going to know this or not, they have to affirmatively attest to the city that they are not eligible, either they are not employed or they are not eligible for their own employer's health insurance plan if they are employed, and there is a criminal penalty for misrepresentation on that form. So we will require the full-time employee or the spouse to affirm to the city that the spouse is a qualifying spouse, and if they do so untruthfully, there is a criminal penalty attached to that, and that's really the only way that we have to enforce our own rules that we're creating with this spousal carve-out.
And again, that applies to employees hired
Only spouses of full-time employees hired on or after October 1st, 2009.
Putting the current staff in a rigmarole over
and so
any element of their benefits.
And just to reiterate the point, again, if that spouse is themselves a city of Buckhannon employee, they're automatically a qualifying spouse for purpose of the ordinance. The city of Buckhannon employee spouse does not have to attest, does not have to file an attestation with the city or anything like that, because we know that they are an employee of the city.
I've looked at it cursorily. I haven't. I had some cosmetic comments.
I found a few things myself.
Not minor stuff, but I think it's a really excellent first draft, and I think the entire council should study this. And why don't we try to schedule? I don't know if we can pull this off. I really need a few days off.
You need a break.
I was gonna try to do a couple of days next week.
Wants to go drive his car around.
Well, did you get a new car? I had the car for 10 days and I forgot to sign a sheet of paper out of Jenkins. I took it back. Said, how many miles you put on? I said, I just 100 coming out here. 100. I had this car for 10 days and you put 100 miles. That was a big trip.
What'd you get there?
I got a canary yellow, glow in the dark, nuclear yellow Mustang.
Oh.
Did you keep the Breeze license plate?
I have.
You gonna give me a ride someday?
But anyway, we're already at 2 hours and 10 minutes, guys.
I know.
So how about we try to schedule maybe the first of the week after next week, an insurance committee meeting? Does that work, like maybe that Monday or Tuesday,
I have to be at a conference that week.
15th, 16th, 17th?
No, it's gonna, I've got a conference, I've got 3 conferences that week. And middle of the week is, the Tuesday, Wednesday is the municipal league thing for the,
Attorney, city attorney. 18th?
What are you doing in the evenings?
Man,
We can figure something out.
If we're affecting this October 1, as long as we have it in place by September 1.
Right.
that's right.
We're
September
good to
2,
go.
frankly.
Yes. So,
You're pushing it, because
what do you want to do, insurance committee? You want to try to,
Well,
I'm flexible. I'll meet whenever you.
Tom wants to meet next week.
No, next week I'm not.
Next week's not good.
No.
well,
We can, we can collab, we can communicate and figure out a date.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll figure out.
I'm there anytime you want me to be there.
Thomas has no life, right?
me too, as long as it's not Saturday or Sunday.
You're not on the
He's
committee.
Me too.
It's, yeah, the insurance committee.
I'm not technically a member of the insurance committee.
And bring recommendations. We'll figure out a date.
Okay.
she's been mumbling over here, Dave.
But good effort, Tom.
I'm like they're getting ready to figure salad.
All I found were a couple of comments. Okay, next up is approval of City of Buckhannon Board and Committee appointments for fiscal year 2019.
Are there any changes?
Here and there, I had a guy pegged for our county, one of our 2 county city appointments to the County Parks and Rec Board. And after I thought I had the guy for sure, he declined. So what I would like you to do is ask your Uncle Dwayne, with his newfound retirement,
There you go.
if in addition to serving on the TV cable board, that hasn't met in 3 years. if
Pretty taxing.
yeah, that's, well, I already told him that. He said, okay, I'm in. So, but the Parks and Rec Board does meet monthly, so would you ask Uncle Dwayne if he would do that? But we re-engineered this a little bit. We had never identified our superintendents of our 4 utility boards before. So I've added that to the list. So indulge me, I'm not going to read this full 10-page thing. The first page is pretty important. Assistant City Recorder, Amberly Jenkins. Director of Finance and Administration, Amberly Jenkins. Director of Public Works, Jerry Arnold. Addressing Officer, Jerry Arnold. Chief of Police, Matthew Gregory. Fire Chief, J.B. Kimball. City Engineer, Jay Holland. City Architect, Bryson Van Noser. Building Code Enforcement Officer, Vincent Smith. City Attorney, Tom O'Neill. Municipal Court Judge, Helen Eckert. City Electrical Inspector, Vincent Smith. Section 504 Compliance Officer, that's the Americans with Disabilities Act, Brad Hawkins. SYCC Director, Deborah Brockelman. Floodplain Manager, CRS Coordinator, Jay Holland. City Technology Officer, Richard Clemens. Information Coordinator, Grants Research Writer, Callie Cronin-Sams. City HRM Officer, Amberly Jenkins. Water Department Superintendent, Kelly Arnold. Waste Department Superintendent, Jeff Wamsley. Sanitary Department Superintendent, Brian Buck Samples. And Street Department and Park Superintendent, Brad Hawkins. Why don't we do that? I'd entertain a motion that we approve those folks. And of course, the wastewater, sanitary, and streets are really up to the utility boards to do their thing. But I have a motion by Thomas. May I have a second to his motion?
Second.
I think I heard Buck Blue next. Is there discussion on the motion? If not, I'll call for the question. All those in favor of those fiscal 2019-2020 fiscal year appointees, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, like sign, motion carries. Water Board. Mayor, term of office, Don Nestor, Raz Rizzo, Robbie Skinner, council, Dave Thomas, council, city recorder is a non-voting member. Waste Board, Mayor, Chair, Nathan Fetty, Mary Albaugh, council, city recorder, non-voting member. Sanitary Board, Mayor, Chair, Gene Fry, Phil Loftus, city recorder, non-voting member. Consolidated Public Works, Mayor, Chair, city recorder, non-voting member. Pam Bucklew, C.J. Rylands, Nancy Shoeb, and Mark Waldo. I would entertain a motion that we approve our board appointments, it is getting late, our board appointments as identified. I have a motion, I think I heard Buckhannon and then Skinner. So motion and a second, discussion on the motion. Call for the question. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, like sign.
I abstain.
Mr. Thomas is abstaining on the board appointments. And I am not going to go through all these other things. I can point out a change here and there. Police civil service stays the same, fire civil service stays the same, zoning board of appeals. I have nominated Shauna Jones in place of Mike Calgar, who moved back in February or March from Buckhannon to Virginia. TV Cable Board, there was a vacancy, and I asked Dwayne Squires, who agreed to serve on that, along with Judy Knorr, Tim Smith, the city recorder, mayor is the chair, and the city attorney is a non-voting member. Building Commission, I think, is the same. Housing Enforcement Board is the same. Stockard Youth Center is still the same. Planning Commission is still the same. Catherine Caperi, I think, was due to go out, and Dean Everett, and they both agreed to stay on for another year. Charles Gibson, public, by the way, the Planning Commission, going on 37 years of working with the Planning Commission, this is the strongest, best, most dedicated, focused Planning Commission. Nothing against folks that have served on it previously, but this is really a good group. Catherine Caperi, Dean Everett, Matt Kerner, Jack Rieger, Rich Clemens, Curtis Wilkerson, Susan Alloy, Vincent Smith, C.J. Rylands, and the city recorder. Charles W. Gibson Memorial Public Library, Region 7 Planning and Development Council, by virtue of me being the mayor, I'm on that thing. Upshur County Rec Board, a vacancy until Dwayne Squires accepts, and Dennis Cordes. Upshur County Development Authority, Executive Committee Rep C.J. Rylands. Upshur County Board of Health, Michael Livesey, Larry Carpenter. Upshur County CPB, Mary Allbaugh, Lacey Ramsey. Historic Landmark Commission remains the same. Airport Authority remains the same. Our three reps for the city are Rich Clemens, Bill Thomas, and C.J. Rylands. Housing Authority remains the same. Animal Care and Control Commission remains the same. Mary's Veterans Affairs Council is pretty much the same. I think I added Carol Westfall because he's the new Post Commander for American Legion. Army Managerial Committee, that's Amby is our rep. Chamber of Commerce rep is Amby. Council committees, Finance Committee is all members of council. Ordinance Committee, all members of council. Health is Mayor, Mary Allbaugh, and Dave Thomas. Fire is all members of council. Police is all members of council. Audit Procurement is Amby, Rich Clemens, Nancy Shoab, Dave Thomas, and the mayor. General Fund Revenue Committee, that stays the same. CALEA Policy Review is the same. CFIA Policy Review for the fire department is the same. I added the Insurance Committee. Mayor's the chair, Dave Thomas, Robbie Skinner, Amby Jenkins, and Barb Hanker. The ridiculous census thing is still in there as before. The Building Facade Committee remains the same. City Library Maintenance Committee is the same. Community Healthcare Initiatives and Drug Combat Committee is the same. The Diversity Appreciation Coalition, it's just basically anybody who wants to show up, but you've got the 9 or 10 folks who have been active with it. The Dog Park Committee remains the same. The Employee Safety Committee has Jerry Arnold and then a rep from each of our 4 utility boards, Brad Hawkins, Kelly Arnold, Jeff Walmsley, and Buck Samples. The Landscape Committee, chaired by Rob Barber, is the same. We do identify Kathy Gregg as not only a member, but as curator of the Nature Park and Learning Trail that is titled with Wesleyan. You've got the Municipal Arts and Events Collaboration Committee, you've got the Municipal Program Assessment Committee, you've got the Pedestrian Friendly ADA Compliance Committee, you've got the Public Safety Complex Committee, the Seasonal Downtown Decoration Coordination Committee, the Sustainability, that's Green Environmental Friendly Committee, the Stockard Youth and Community Center Capital Campaign Steering Committee, the Theater Building Project Committee, and last year we just carried this over for the last couple of years, the Atlantic Coast Pipeline Committee, which is the Water Board members. The charges are still in there from some of those more recently created committees. I eliminated a couple of 3 of them because there just hadn't been any activity. I would entertain a motion that all of those other appointments be approved by the council.
David, the Capital Campaign Committee for Stockard.
Yes.
Who's on that?
You, me, Oh, you would ask
Don
that,
Nestor,
Thomas.
Don Nestor, Nancy.
Nestor, Shub, Rob, Thomas, and McCollum.
We need to have a meeting.
Yeah, be a good idea.
Okay.
We could
I
come
got
up with
some
some
Dave,
ideas.
do people have to be living in the city limits to be on these boards?
Not all of the committees.
Okay, I know.
The committees are not set statutorily, those are just things that we have come up with over the years. Like Heather McNeamer has the McNeamer House, she's
Right,
on the
that's what.
music and arts thing, that
Okay.
kind of stuff.
I
Yeah,
get that.
yeah. But the boards, they do have, so there's a couple of exceptions to that. To the Waste Collection Board, John Hinkle was on that board for 38 years or something like that. And we thought we were gonna have to kick John off the board, but there is no residency requirement for waste collection. I think there is for water, but there isn't for waste.
There is for zoning.
There is for zoning, there is for planning.
And some of them are by Republican or Democrat. and
Fire, civil service, and police civil service, you can't have more than 2 of anything.
And sanitary doesn't have a city council rep.
So we try to recertify those folks to make sure that they're still Democratic Republicans, and somebody hadn't crossed this up and changed their politics. There's a lot involved in these things, guys, I mean, to tell you. So,
Motion.
I have a motion by Skip, I have a second by Sanders. Is there discussion on that motion? Hearing of the need for none, I'll call for the question. All those in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye. Those opposed, like sign, motion carries. We've already addressed F6. F5, I would like to just continue the discussion, but since JB is here, he and I had a conversation a couple of 3 weeks ago, and I mentioned this at the last council meeting. We have Tanner Collins down there at the police department, who's a great fill in the void kind of a thing. He works 15, 20 hours a week for us. And what I would like to do, and if we're to do it, since it's in violation of state statute under civil service, good grief. Coming right through the window on us here. What I would like to do is permit Tom to start a draft that for some upcoming meeting, I don't know if we can make it for the fall meeting or not, maybe, to allow JB to have a similar kind of opportunity with a part-time firefighter. That would be the equivalent of a Tanner Collins. And do you want to say something about that?
You know, after you and I'll be brief. I'd really like to look and go into our needs analysis, maybe towards the end of the month, so we can look at the staffing in a whole. The concern, and I had some discussion with the guys at work about this, is finding that person, because when you look at what you did in home rule with the city police, it's 25% of the force, which is 2 people, which would be 1 for us. And to find somebody that is as well trained as somebody you'd be trying to work with.
But here's what I was thinking.
Okay.
What if we set like 20 hours a week, and you could allocate it among 2 or 3 guys in a particular pool? I mean, you know the ones I'm thinking of that are the constant fill-in volunteers anyway. It just gives you some opportunity to count on that person. Instead of them volunteering, you would, hey, are you ready to be booked for a shift next Thursday because Joey's going to training and I'm going to be a guy down, or whatever it would be.
Okay, and let me clarify, we're not taking any time away from the full-time paid staff. This is like during times of like Strawberry Festival.
That's right.
Or
Yeah.
additional staffing, storms or something like that.
As needed by you, and it would be your discretion.
I mean, let me check into that.
Yeah.
I mean,
Let's
but I still want to have the needs analysis meeting and,
Sure.
and look at staffing as a
Well,
whole.
and you got a grant application that's in the next 2 or 3 months is we're gonna know something
Hopefully in
about.
September we'll know something
Yeah.
about. And if that gets that, you know, we're looking at hopefully being able to improve our staffing. And
So we're not kicking the can down the road, we're just gonna be more focused on our conversation.
Okay.
So Tom, you don't need to draft an ordinance yet. So
you need it on Monday.
you don't need to draft an ordinance yet.
Well, the next, well, not the next summer, actually it might be now. Next home rule board meeting will be October 15th. And we can set a soft goal of trying to have a proposal ready for the home rule board by that point.
Yeah, let's shoot for that. That sound good, JB?
That's good.
Okay, anything else for Chief Kimmel before we? Okay, that takes care of all the strategic stuff, guys. What a meeting.
Hallelujah.
Mary, you got anything else for us?
Yes.
Robbie? Mr. Sanders?
No, sir.
Mrs. Buckley?
Like that, I'm asking people to come out and enjoy their time on Friday evening at Festival Fridays and the 4th of July events.
I did have a question, somebody did ask me about if it storms, if it rains, do we have a backup date, or is it just if it doesn't?
We still, the fireworks still go off.
Okay, no matter what.
They just judge the weather a little
Okay.
bit, it might be a little bit off.
Festival Friday, unless it's a tornado, they'll be there.
Hey, Charleston had one last night.
Shouldn't scoff at that, should they? Mr. Thomas?
You all have a nice, you all have.
I was going to read you this excellent passage. We celebrated Gray Barker World UFO Day earlier today. It's in your packet. You can read it on your own. Amanda was there. But Gray Barker, there's a scary passage in there from his book, which is captioned, they knew too much about UFOs or something like that. So flying saucers, rather. So it's great stuff. All right, I got nothing new, guys. So we do need to have, I hate to tell you this, a very short executive session to discuss property matters. I would entertain a motion that we adjourn. Motion carries. We'll do an executive session. So thank you all for coming. See you guys.
Adios, everybody good.